Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain. Hello everyone, I'm the Magic Llama of THEMAGICLLAMAMOOD, and I am very excited to bring you the second ever Indie RPG Game Corner. I think that's what it's called, Indie RPG Game Corner. It's only the second one, so I'm getting to interview Sean Jaffe, who is a very good friend of mine and one of the creators of my favorite indie RPG game. This is Rememorex. It's the classic kids on bikes, suburban 80s horror. It's basically if Stranger Things was an RPG, which is, in my opinion, the perfect RPG. You're a normal kid in a normal town until things change, until the strangeness sets in. It truly makes me nostalgic for the 80s, even though I was born in the 90s. It's got that perfect mix of John Hughes and Gremlins, the Goonies. It's like a nice mixture of those. So I'm really excited to get to talk with him, and I'm gonna leave all of his and Nerdy City's links in the description box, so go and check him out. Go and download the game or order the game, and let's support indie game creators. Hello! What are you doing on my channel?
I'm Sean Jaffe. I'm here because you asked me here. I have no idea. I have no other memories. Now, this is a lame bit. I'm not going to do that. I'm the co-creator of Rememorex with my wife, Megan Dawson Jaffe, the creator of Commandroids, A World Transformed, co-creator of RPG Nasty, a whole bunch of other indie stuff going way back. But I'm figuring we'll talk about the 80s stuff today. So
see, I tried to invoke 80s. Now I'm a 90s baby, so the troll is a little more 90s.
I have 10,000 robots here. Pretty much the entire lineup of the 84 to 80 to 1990 G1 Transformers behind me.
That's impressive.
Bit of a problem.
You have made all of these wonderful indie RPGs, and I have gotten to play 2 of them. This is one of my most favorite RPGs ever. Look, I have it all freaking marked up from the times I
have my brand new hardcover. Ooh, shiny. Yeah, it looks like a VHS tape. I love it.
Well, I have the VHS tape version too.
The VHS thing, came to us as a last minute, we could make a little player's kit with a VHS. That started actually with my players. They started bringing their dice in VHS boxes as a dice tray, and I was like, well, this was a good idea.
It makes good sounds too when you roll all of the D6s in it. So, what is Rememorex? What is this world that you created?
So, Rememorex is a tabletop, we call it the tabletop role-playing game of suburban 80s horror. It is inspired by the 80s as genre. So, the stories of, a small suburb, small town that gets attacked or somehow infiltrated by some strange element. Usually the government gets involved, and then things go off the rails. If you look at the classics, right? You look at the Goonies or Gremlins or Stranger Things or any number, even Critters. Something weird comes to town, a group of kids find it, have to protect it. It somehow becomes exposed, and then things go crazy, and the kids have to save the day. We've learned to really kind of play with that, and I've been running it consistently every week for, at this point, nearly 5 years. So we've created an extended cosmology out of that. At this point that we're starting to explore with new books, which is how we got into Commandroids, A World Transformed, which is the next Rememorex game that's coming out.
That sounds awesome. And it's the same world as Rememorex.
Yes.
That is crazy to me, because I remember you said you were running these games weekly for 5 years. I remember when we played at a convention, maybe was that 4 years ago or something?
It was 2 or 3 years ago, yeah. This year, though, in both of our defense, has been 10 years long.
But when we played, I remember you had players that you had already played with, and you integrated my new character into the world. There were so many through lines to make within the mystery of the Rememorex world that 1 was super intriguing, and 2 was so welcoming to me. I don't know why. The amount of questions that you're able to pose in a sci-fi horror game that also has these elements of the high school John Hughes tropes and the character creation. How do you balance all of the different mysteries and questions that you can create and that you have maintained for 5 years in Rememorex.
I got a lot of notes. I'll say that. The book has a lot of the through lines right there in it. It's dense. There's a lot of information there. And it all started, with this little town of Clearfield that we created. The jumping off point to a lot of these stories is the town. And the town is a big part of, that story, right? Stranger Things couldn't happen without Hawkins. Gremlins couldn't happen without Kingston. These little towns, have a distinct effect, and they're almost like a character within their story. And we wanted to make sure that Clearfield was the same way. The fundamental mystery of Clearfield, for anybody coming in, is what's under that lake. There's a man-made lake in the middle of Clearfield County. It becomes clear that something happened. There was a fourth town called Madeline Valley that got flooded, and that something happened that they're trying to cover up, and that kind of is that's the rabbit hole. The other thing that I encourage anyone running really any game, but especially Rememorex, to do is don't be afraid to play the long game. It started off as just a thing I was doing with some friends. I saw Stranger Things. I was hugely inspired, and that sent me down the rabbit hole of E.T. and Goonies and all of those. And the thing that I noticed was that it was really important for you to set a baseline of what normal life is. I think a lot of these supernatural games are okay, you're a kid, you are going to high school, you have a bunch of friends, now you're in the woods and you see a werewolf, and you just jump into it, right? So there's no normalcy that's being threatened. We already know the normal is that we're running from a werewolf. We've started there. I ran a Clearfield setting as a John Hughes story. So I came up with a story that had no aliens, no government agents, no conspiracy. It was just kids in high school and their relationships for about 3 months. Nothing happened, which meant that when something happened, the impact was like a sledgehammer. I cannot overstate to anybody who wants to run anything, but especially any sort of modern urban fantasy or sci-fi or anything like that, is do an entire story arc, or perhaps 2, where nothing happens, so that when the thing happens, it absolutely shatters the player's worlds. That reaction becomes so much more genuine. Because otherwise, you also are sort of giving people, in a weird way, too much of what they want. Any kid wants to be abducted by aliens. They want to go on a crazy adventure. But yeah, it did require a lot of keeping of notes.
I love the idea of it's not even slow burn if it's just normal for a little bit.
Right.
I don't think that's even a slow burn situation. I am playing in a game of D&D Curse of Strahd right now, which I think is the complete horror opposite of kind of the plot devices that you use in Rememorex and the kind of normalcy that exists. And I think one of the strengths of many in this game is the character creation and the specificity of these tropes. And they're so specific that they don't exist as tropes anymore, if that makes sense. Can you talk a little bit about how you came up with the idea for the, I guess, classes, for lack of a better word?
It all started off with me just running the game I wanted to run. And I realized that, when I started working on it, that if you are a kid, you're not going to fight your way out of it. You're not a ninja. You're not a soldier. You're not even really a paranormal investigator. You have no idea what's going on. You need to sort of outwit these things. You're not going to fight your way out. So I wanted it to be very open-ended. What you're good at is what you're good at. I didn't want to have endless lists of skills. You're a kid, you're good at a certain thing. So, your 3 stats are just, I'm good at heavy metal, I'm good at drawing skulls on my notebook, and I'm good at skateboard, that kind of thing. Or, I'm good at convincing my dad to let me take the car, I have some money, and I look good in a t-shirt. Skills are what you develop on your own. There's no list that you choose them from. I mean, a lot of the basics in terms of character creation in any game is sort of just matching up a species and a class, right? Any of these games has okay, this is where you come from and this is what you do. I realized that if you are going to get that John Hughes element, this stratification of American teenagers in the 1980s was absolutely nailed down by John Hughes in The Breakfast Club, which is the most iconic 80s teen movie. So it establishes essentially your elves, dwarves, your humans, your orcs, in that you've got your jock, your basket case, your princess, that was a great place to say, okay, these are the tribes you're coming from. You can extrapolate and get outside of it. It was this sort of road that led from E.T. to John Hughes, and watching Pretty in Pink and 16 Candles and all that. One of the proudest moments for me in this game was one of the guys that was an extra in Pretty in Pink played his character in Rememorex. He's like a punk rocker in the background of a couple of scenes. He played that guy in Rememorex, and his character is still like part of things. He actually had a huge effect on the overarching story.
Can you talk a little bit about the mechanics? Obviously, like, hold some things back because I want people to buy this. But can you talk a little bit about the kind of VHS-centric mechanics in this game?
One of the things that we really got into was the idea of a framing mechanism. And it never says it anywhere in the book, but the idea is that with Rememorex and, by extension, the entire Radical Shadows universe, we're doing, Command Droids, A World Transformed, and Holomatics, A New Wave Order, and all of those. The idea is that it's a group of unlabeled cassette tapes that you found in a garage or in an attic somewhere that you're just watching through. And that these are like these sort of lost VHS tapes. To that end, we wanted to kind of give the element of it being like a TV show. So one of the mechanics that I put in is opening credits. So you can say like, okay, we're all just going to sit here, we're going to hang out, and we're going to listen to this Cyndi Lauper song for a few seconds to just get us into the headspace. Or you could take it way too far like I do and learn video editing and make opening credits for every single week's episode.
Well, I have some that you made for my game that I ran.
Right, yeah, if somebody gets in touch with me and they have Rememorex, I'm happy to sort of give them the baseline version so they can make the opening credits with their own players' names in it. But the thing about it is, it's a ritual, right? You sit down to watch a show, there's an opening credits sequence, it gets you into this world, but it takes you into like, okay, this is the game space now. And I find that that's very valuable, especially like, as more and more technology encroaches on everything, anytime that you're running a game, people assign to sort of go off and check their phones. They're going to like kind of be doing 20 things at once. It's good to have something that sort of keeps them in the headspace. It was originally designed to be like an anti-phone mechanic to keep people like paying attention as opposed to like, oh, I'm not in this scene. Groups split up, and then you get like, okay, you three are going to go down the path into the woods, and you three are going to stay here and check out the shed. So you guys, you're in the woods. The three guys in the shed are not doing anything. So they're going to check their phone, they're going to get out of it. They're going to lose that immersion. And I wanted to keep them involved. So the tracking error was the big breakthrough. I think that was the thing that most people really love, is the tracking error. Where, okay, so if your three friends are in the shed and you guys are in the woods, and I'm not, I, the GM, am not talking to you about the woods right now, you can really affect what happens in that shed. And the idea is that you're throwing a curveball as much at me as you are at them. And the book goes into like more, I don't want to give every bit of it away, but obviously it's a lot about like sort of affecting them without taking away their player agency or without directly, you can't be like, oh, and then Jeff's leg falls off.
I think it's a really unique form of group storytelling.
It's a great way to keep everybody kind of focused in.
So I think I'm gonna leave the audience wanting more at this point.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you so much for being willing to talk with me about this stuff. I have my old character sheet here, and I've been looking at it a little bit. I played a very badass and resourceful Girl Scout. She was named Violet, and now that my hair is violet, I want to play her again.
Well, maybe we could work something up.
Yeah, I'd love it. How do they find Rememorex and all of the amazing things that you are doing?
We're on DriveThruRPG. If you look up Rememorex on DriveThruRPG, it should pop up. And RPG Nasty as well. We have pre-orders open for Command Droids, A World Transformed, which is... it's very much, again, this story of kids, in suburban 80s dealing with a otherworldly threat, in this case, giant transforming robots. But if you don't find us on DriveThruRPG, you can always just look at nerdycity.com. There's links to all of our games there. We also do, we just picked up Chronos, which is like an entire card-based tabletop / live-action role-playing system. Ex Arcana, which is like a weird cosmic secret society magic thing that's more of like a kind of steampunk Doctor Strange kind of story. And then, of course, Rememorex, RPG Nasty, and the Radical Shadows universe.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Sean. This has been lovely, as always. I'm going to stop recording now, I think.
All right.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a blast making it. Make sure to check out all of Sean Jaffe's links and all the Nerdy City links in the description box down below. It would make me very happy. And while you're at it, give this video a like and subscribe, hit that button, and ring the bell, or else the strangeness will come to your 80s suburban town and no one will live to tell the tale. Have a wonderful day wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya!